All right, final feelings before Tennessee and Georgia tee it up at Neyland Stadium for the last SEC East game between these two. One of the last SEC East games ever. So Tennessee's about 10.5-point dog in this game. I saw a statistic where only 3 times in the last 40 years, now some of those times they didn't play, but only something like 3 times in the last 40 years have both of these teams come into this game unranked. I don't know what the opposite is, but it is the opposite. Now, they're both ranked coming into this thing. Now, the Vols certainly need a win in this one to sort of correct a season that's gone a little bit haywire compared to what it looked like coming into it. They don't have a great win. They have a good win over Kentucky. They have a perplexing loss to Florida. I'm still not sure I understand that. And then a great half against Alabama. That's been Tennessee's season so far. And, they've got Georgia and Vandy to wrap this thing up. And next year will be a different world for everybody in the league. It will be, the addition of Texas and Oklahoma. The divisions aren't playing anymore. It's going to be a different time. So this is really the last hurrah for everybody in the SEC East, Florida and Missouri tomorrow as well. And I'm doing this before I head up to Knoxville on Friday afternoon. As you can see, it's certainly very overcast out here. I'm in my Eco-Poly chair. It's awesome. I need to show you. You can see maybe some of it down there with the Dog Post logo. I wanted to make sure that I get that in there. But you can get 15% off and free shipping any of their items on their store. This is an extremely comfortable chair with 2 colors. So make sure you're taking advantage of what Eco-Poly has got to offer. They're a great partner to us. 20-year warranty. This is made of completely recycled plastics. So keep that in mind as you shop for the holidays, which are right around the corner, let me tell you. This is going to be a challenging game for Tennessee to win. Last week was really disturbing because it undercuts the idea that Tennessee is right there. Missouri is a good team. Missouri's probably going to rank this season. They may wind up in the top 6, something like that. That's very possible. I mean, they basically did not survive a shootout with LSU, and they lost to Georgia in Athens. There's nothing wrong with losing those games if you're Missouri. But here we are knocking this thing out at the end of the season, and Tennessee needs a big win. I mean, they don't have one this season. Every ranked team they play this year, they lost to. And I got the number 1 Dawgs coming in. Tennessee's not beating the number 1 team in the country since Bo Jackson came to Knoxville. Not beating them in Knoxville since Bo Jackson came with Auburn in the early 80s. So that's how long it's been. Now, you don't play the number 1 team in the country every single week, but they played Alabama a lot. They played the Gators a lot. They played Georgia a fair amount. So they've had opportunities, just hasn't happened. So this is the moment, where you really want to write your program going into 2024. You're going to have a new quarterback if you're Tennessee. For Georgia, it's all there. This is the safety net game. If you win this game, if you're Georgia, Georgia's not going to lose to Georgia Tech, okay? If you win this game, you've got a lot of really good to very good wins. You've got 11 of them and should be 12 when you play Georgia Tech. I wouldn't categorize them as really good or really good at all. Georgia Tech's extremely up and down. But this gives you what will probably still be a top 25 game that you've won at the end of the season if something happens against Alabama, which means if they lose. You want as many big wins as you can get. You want as many ranked wins as you can get. And this is Georgia's final chance to get a ranked win in the regular season. They're playing really well. Now, here's the problem. You're going to Knoxville, which is extremely difficult to play in because of the noise, not just the screaming of the crowd, but the ambient noise, the band, the cheerleaders, the speakers that they have set up on the sideline. My last count, and this was a couple of years ago, they had 10 speakers around the field. That's a lot of speakers. I don't see that at other schools. I'll just put it to you like that. So, not during the game. So, that's something to keep in mind. It's very hard to hear so I walk obviously on the field. It's very hard to hear where the Georgia band is, walking to the Tennessee band, and you're walking through the area where Georgia's bench is. It's an extremely loud situation. It's hard to communicate there. On the bench, So that's another problem that they're going to have going up there. But you'd be ignorant not to point out how Georgia seems to be finding their rhythm right now. You have the addition of Kendall Milton, who had his best game ever in college last week. You have a steady horse in John Edwards. You've got the return of Brock Bowers. You have Lad McConkey. These guys have not all played in the same game. I think with the exception of the Auburn game and part of the Vanderbilt game, none of them have all played at the same time with Amarius Mims. So the offense has been missing some pieces, and it's still averaging 40-plus points a game. That's a lot of production. What you cannot have in this game is Carson Beck not play well. Now, he's played well, generally speaking, this entire season. He's played very well at times. But this will be the final real, road test. They're only going to have two, Auburn and Tennessee. Auburn, per capita, is worse than Tennessee. But Tennessee's got about 20,000 more fans. So they can really get on top of you, okay? And they know how to create an atmosphere. But if Georgia's defense does what I think they will do, it's going to be hard for Joe Milton for 60 minutes to execute against this defense. This defense is solid, not spectacular, solid. They are one of the best, 5 or 10 in the country. They consistently perform, and they are one of the better secondaries in the country, meaning top 2 or 3. That's what Milton's going up against. He's going to have to execute every single time. He did not do that against Texas A&M the whole game. He did not do that against Alabama. Georgia has a better defense than those guys. So this is going to be really tough for Joe Milton. In addition, I don't like how Tennessee is banged up right now. I don't know if that will carry over to game day or not or what, but that's not an ideal situation either. So all obvious signs point to this should be a Georgia win. My only caveat, and I do think Georgia will win. I think they'll cover. My only caveat is, having been up to Knoxville plenty, 10-plus times now, I have been there after they've lost big games or performed horridly, and they've come back and beaten Georgia the next time they played. So I've seen that with my own eyes. But they're not the better team here. Georgia it's not that Georgia's on a mission. It's not that there's some sort of revenge or whatever people talk about. Georgia's just playing at a level that it's hard to imagine moving forward that they're going to drop back from playing that way. If this were the Georgia that we saw in middle September against South Carolina, or kind of finding their way in those first 3 games, yeah, there'd be reason to be concerned about them losing. I'm not sure you can legitimately say that coming into this game, okay? It's one of these games where, Georgia should just go handle business. If they were playing this game in Athens, they'd be a solid 15, 17 point, favorite. People say, "Oh, the numbers are," yeah, they matter. They matter to me because it gives you an indicator. It's a barometer of where things could show up. Once you get below a 10-point line, your likelihood of losing goes up, Once you get over 10, once you get past 14, it becomes pretty thin. Georgia's only going to play one more game the rest of this season where they're going to be, a 2-score touchdown, a two touchdown or more favorite. That's against Georgia Tech. They're going to kill Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech doesn't have anything. They're not consistent. They're not, have playmakers. The quarterback is a disaster. That's not going to be the case from here on out. Tennessee, in a way, is a poor man's Alabama. Now, one problem that Tennessee's got is Missouri really did throw on them too. That is not good with Georgia coming into town. That is not good. So what you're going to want to not do is turn it over. You want to shut the door as fast as you can at the beginning of this game. You want a sleeping, rickety Neyland. You don't need to worry if the thing's going to fall down because the crowd's so into it. I've seen that too. So, DJ Shockley and that 05 team went up there and really had to gut that game out, and eventually they did. But not without Shock throwing a pick 6 first, and that stadium exploded. And so, Georgia's not seen that. They've seen it at Auburn, but it's louder, it's more raucous. It's louder at Tennessee. And Auburn doesn't have the players that Tennessee has. So, don't let Joe Milton get off. Slow this thing down at the start. You want to see punts from Tennessee or field goals, and then score your touchdowns. I mean, if you're going on the road in the SEC, I don't know that you should be scoring 50 points. So what we saw last week against Ole Miss, probably not happening, right? But if you can get to 35, something like that, that's a different conversation. I just don't know that Tennessee can score that high on the Dogs. What happens if Tennessee has a turnover game? It's going to be hard for them then. It's going to be a challenging game for the Vols, period. It doesn't mean they can't win, but Georgia's going to have to play probably its worst game of the season for that to happen, and Tennessee's going to have to take advantage of it. So we will see, but I do like the way that Georgia's playing. I don't see how you wouldn't unless you're playing them. And then, let's see if they continue to execute on the offensive side of the ball. If they do that, it's going to be a long night for Tennessee. If they don't, you're going to be in for a fight. And they know up there how to create an atmosphere that is a really dangerous place to play. We'll see you after the game at riding home from Neyland Stadium. Thanks for watching.